In this video, we are applying Julius Evola's deep insight to understand where Stoicism and all higher philosophy flows forth from, namely the transcendent domain within. I'm Christian. Welcome back to Wisdom Warriors. Marcus Aurelius had an inspiring line in Meditations that goes, "I am unfuckwithable. Be more like me, peasants." All right, maybe not. But that is the essence of Stoicism. There is this superior place within man that the Stoic philosophy seems to pour out of, that Stoic ideal per se. And this video is about finding that. The thing is another quote, another book from Seneca or Marcus Aurelius. These things aren't going to change your life. They're inspiring for a while. They help you get out of bed and face the worries and the evils of the day and face fortune like a man. But how do you overcome your own bullshit consistently? Not just when you're hyped up on Seneca, but how do you transform into the more unfuckwithable man you could be? Well, that's about changing your center point, your orientation in life. Where is your center point? What are you centered in? This is perhaps the most important question you can ask yourself, and it takes some metaphysical lifting. So I'm here to help you with that. Most people lack a coherent sense of self. They have no center whatsoever. They feel themselves to be a multiplicity of voices. They are always changing in reaction to the world, to other people, and to circumstances. Because they lack a center, they can't navigate fears, worries, problems, desires with any consistency. Other people have a center point, but it's fashioned outside of themselves. Perhaps they identify with being successful or making a lot of money, or that their identity is centered in their family or their role in life. Perhaps it's centered in their ideology, in their religion or God. Pride Month is a great example of people who externalize their center into an identity. They create this identity and that becomes their orbiting center point. More mature souls out there, and most people here, have a loose center point within. And perhaps you feel yourself to be this coherent being, and especially when you get quiet through meditation or movement, this strong and consistent sense of self shines through. I often think about this as the center of my being is like the sun, and it's my chief and dominant archetype. Whenever I get quiet enough, it shines through. But on top of that, there's layers of sludge, and there's also these surrounding impulses and secondary drives and ambitions that aren't quite true to my core. And the whole goal of Stoicism is to live in accordance with your nature. The whole goal of Evola's traditionalism is to will forth that which you truly are, to fully embody your archetype. And the thing is these philosophers thought of man's nature as something superior, something lofty. And it can only come into full manifestation through the transcendent principle within. And this is the source of all overcoming, of all deity per se. And the more we can place our center in our superior self, in the transcendent world, the more naturally unfuckwithable and stoic we become. Letter 41 in Letters from a Stoic by Seneca is titled, "On the God Within Man." In this letter he wrote, "If you see a man who is unterrified in the midst of dangers, untouched by desires, happy in adversity, peaceful amid the storm, who looks down upon men from a higher plane and views the gods on a footing of equality, will not a feeling of reverence for him steal over you? Will you not say, 'This quality is too great and too lofty to be regarded as resembling this petty body in which it dwells? A divine power has descended upon that man.'" What Seneca is talking about here is what Evola calls the transcendent domain within. And in the transcendent domain, all of the challenges, the to's and fro's, the ups and downs of the world become petty. almost of no account. It's because you're standing on that superior plane that is on equal footing with the gods. And the more we can come into that transcendent place through meditation, through heroic action, the more naturally free, noble, and powerful we become. And so many people feel inspired by a quote of Stoicism, but they don't understand that Stoicism is often just a finger pointing towards the moon. And the moon is the transcendent. To put it as simply as possible, the transcendent is that place of calm, self-overcoming within, that divine kingship at your core. And the more you can connect with this and build a relationship with it, the more the transcendent can act through your life. All of Stoicism in reality is this meditation on self-overcoming. Like all of Marcus Aurelius's notes to himself is like, how is he overcoming spite? How is he overcoming fear? How is he overcoming blindness to his own mortality? It is this attempt at radical self-overcoming. And self-overcoming occurs when we are connected to a superior place. And Marcus Aurelius summed it up well in a quote that said, "Dig within. Within is the wellspring of the good, and it is always ready to bubble up if you just dig." The wellspring of the good, or the transcendent, is always there, buried within you, but it's usually buried under pre-programmed conditioning, reactions. It's buried under what I like to call the little man, who is always seeking pleasure, who is always seeking safety and comfort, avoiding pain, quailing under fear. Is this living as his weaker version? And the more we can connect to the transcendent, the more naturally we overcome the little man. Now, most of you already are familiar with this domain within the self. It's why you love Nietzsche's Zarathustra. It's why you resonate with Stoicism. It's why you read warrior spiritual philosophies. All of these are expressions of the transcendent domain. And the more clear we can get on the transcendent and place our center on the divine kingship that flows out from the transcendent, this is how you reach into a higher freedom. Julius Evola thought one major problem with the modern world is that we have lost our notion of distances. The great distance between the animalistic self and the superior self. The great distances between average men and exceptional men. And without a respect for distances, we'll never truly understand the Stoic philosophy, because the Stoic philosophy comes from a place on high. It's this voice that is eternal, unchanging, lofty, superior, and free in every way. And to attain to that Stoic ideal is we need to reestablish this concept of distance within ourselves. So I'm going to read a few quotes from Marcus Aurelius and others, and I want us to understand these writings through a notion of distance. So number one, quote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." This sense of untroubledness and radical honesty in the face of life can only come from attaining a position that is above life. This is an echo of Buddhism and yoga in many ways, which is about actualizing that transcendent self into reality. Another quote that reveals this, and one of my favorite quotes from Aurelius, is, "Here is a rule to remember in the future. When anything tempts you to feel bitter, say to yourself, not, 'This is misfortune,' but rather, 'To bear this well is good fortune.'" Where does that voice come from? That Stoic voice that is superior to misfortune, that cares not for fears or losses, that rejoices and is happy with all things that come and go in life. How do we attain that position within ourselves? And I think you know the answer by now. It's about activating the transcendent part within you. And I want to read you a quote from Seneca that says, "When a soul rises superior to other souls, when it is under control, when it passes through every experience as if it were a small account, when it smiles at our fears and at our prayers, it is stirred by a force from heaven." As if it were of small account. Imagine looking at your vices, your cravings, your pains as if they were trivial things. This is the mindset of the superior self, the voice of the superior self. And the more rooted in the transcendent we are, the more distance we have between our lower nature and our higher nature. And this distance is essential because when you have distance, all of a sudden life takes on this like poetic quality. I remember walking through the park just a few days ago after a really profound meditation, and the pains in my bodies, the resistance to going to work, the ups and downs in my relationships, all of these things were of basically no account. It was almost funny to me. I was smiling at it. And I attained this sense of higher freedom that no matter what was happening to me and around me, I had this conviction in who I was and this freedom in who I was. And then I sat down to work, and work was this joyous thing that I saw my body doing. It's like I was fully a part of life, but I was not of life. So how do you become unfuckwithable? How do you attain a real higher freedom like the Stoics? It's time to bring all of this philosophy down to earth, and I just want to talk about what has worked for me along my path and give you 3 easy steps to apply. Step 1 is about a 10-minute meditation practice every day. And this meditation is about connecting to the transcendent or superior self within, breathing and letting go of the material world and all the little man and all the little desires and worries, and just connecting to that eternal place. And the more you can do this, the more you can feel at home inside of yourself, the more correctly you can place your center. And honestly, for me, by connecting to that superior place within me throughout every day, in the midst of hardships, in the midst of uncertainties, I get a more clear sense of who I am. And through that clear sense of who I am, I know how to act and how to act uprightly. And this is actually what is life-changing. It's not trying to emulate something else. I know there's so many ideas out there in the personal development space, but I think most people are missing this unifying principle. And that is, where is your center? How can you connect to a superior center within you more often and let that guide you through the uncertainties and the troubles of life? So step 1 is about building a connection with the transcendent, knowing the transcendent within you. But step 2 is about putting it to the test and making that connection stronger. This is done through exposure. There's a great quote from Seneca on this topic, which I'd like to read to you. Quote, "For our powers can never inspire in us implicit faith in ourselves, except when many difficulties have confronted us on this side and on that, and have occasionally even come to close quarters with us. It is only in this way that the true spirit can be tested. The spirit that will never consent to come under the jurisdiction of things external to ourselves. This is the touchstone of such a spirit. No prize fighter can go with high spirits into the strife if he has never been beaten black and blue. The only contestant who can confidently enter the lists is the man who has seen his own blood, who has felt his teeth rattle beneath his opponent's fist, who has been tripped and felt the full force of his adversary's charge, who has been downed in body but not in spirit. One who, as often as he falls, rises again with greater defiance than ever." Seneca, Letter 13. What is the thing that enslaves most people? It's not tyrants, contrary to popular opinion. It's actually fear. It's resistance. It's the own negativity and uncertainties in their own minds. And these internal forces or dragons are the thing we must overcome if we ever are to attain a higher freedom. And to do this is about exposing ourselves to dangers, to hardships, like the prize fighter going into the ring many times until he no longer has fear or trepidation, but can enter with confidence because he trusts himself. Higher freedom is earned when we can take the courageous path in life, and that courageous path ends in a deep sense of self-trust. So step 3 here, on the note of exposure, is about choosing a resistance to overcome. That can be saying no to an addiction, saying no to sugar, or saying, no to vaping every day and committing to that path, or saying yes to your project, waking up and writing for an hour, or working on your business, or going to the gym, like choosing a resistance where you are intentionally invoking that transcendent part of yourself to overcome an obstacle into greater freedom. And number 4, possibly the most down-to-earth and accessible way we can all activate the transcendent within us, is to face suffering well, to make misfortune our bitch. As Marcus Aurelius said, when anything tempts you to feel bitter, say to yourself, this is not misfortune. To bear this well is good fortune. How can you see the pains, the losses, the ups and downs of life as a positive thing and accept all things woven into the pattern of your destiny? This is the ultimate stoic practice, is to be unaffected by the changes in the world and things you can't control, such as how much sleep you got or whether the girl likes you or not. By building a relationship to the superior self within, the transcendent world, through the adversity of life, this is how you become truly unfuckwithable. Thanks for watching Wisdom Warriors. I'm Christian. If you want to apply these ideas with other men and comrades, I encourage you to join my new men's group and men's academy. I'm looking for founding members right now. If that's for you, there's a link in the description to learn more. If that's not for you, you can click here for my last video talking about Julius Evola and Nietzsche. Really interesting and powerful on the same theme of transcendence. Thanks for being here, my friends. Live dangerously today, and may the transcendent be with you.